All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Guild Wars 2 Guru State of the Game. My name is Grouch. I'm joined by Jonathan Sharp and Evan Lesh. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, what's up, guys?
What's up?
We've also got Zoose.
Hello.
And Phantaram.
Hello.
Hello. So yeah, we have some interesting stuff to talk about today, I guess. You just want to jump right in? Yeah, you just want to do
Should
it?
we introduce ourselves first? Probably should.
Yeah, why don't you guys go ahead?
Yeah.
I'll go.
They don't know who these guys
I'm
are?
Phantaram from Team Paradigm. I'm from USA, but I play on the EU servers with the Team Paradigm EU team. And I just forfeited a 1v1 tournament to come here.
You forfeited?
What a guy.
I thought they were going to postpone it.
In the grand finals, I was in Teldo.
Good guy, Phantaram. Oh
Wow.
my goodness.
Thanks, Phantaram.
Yep.
Taking one for the community. Such a gentleman. All right, how about you, Zeus?
Hello, I'm Zeus. I play for SOAC, and I play on America.
You play on America.
Okay.
On America. On America, specifically.
So I guess everyone's pretty familiar with John Sharp, but Evan Lesh, gameplay programmer, right? Is that your official title? And you
Gameplay
focus
programmer for sPvP for the last couple years at least.
Yep.
Okay. And what are the main things you've focused on that you're responsible for, I guess? Everything?
Everything, custom units, spectator mode, ratings, lots of back-end stuff. Too much to list, really.
Yeah, it's a lot of stuff.
All right. Okay, well, now that we're all acquainted, would you like to jump in, John?
Yeah,
At
sure.
first. All right.
So we have a lot of stuff we can talk about. The big thing, obviously, is we've been having a lot of tournaments lately. We've been really excited about that. So that's one of the things that we're looking at internally is making sure that as we said in some of the other streams we've been doing lately, we're just trying to make sure that we're watching the community, we're supporting you guys where you need it, but not stepping on your toes. So that's something that I think is going to be a kind of a learning process, that we make sure that we support you guys as much as you need it, but then we don't get in your way. So that's one of the things that we just wanted to say thank you to the community for supporting the game so much. Our numbers keep going up and up and up and up. So people are really happy with what's happening. So that makes us happy too. Maybe some feedback from you guys, like from Phant and Zeus, about how you guys feel about that stuff and how it's going.
I like the fact that a lot of the community has stepped up to do tourneys and stuff like that, because it's just the arenas are in beta right now and only a select few people have them. But in the month of May and June alone, I've seen 5 or 6 tourneys already on both EU and NA, and a lot of upcoming leagues and stuff. So I mean, it's really cool because then you get ArenaNet is doing something, and then it's letting the community play a part in it too. So I mean, hashtag esports.
Hashtag esports. How about you, Fana? You guys won Kings of Beta.
Yeah. The tournaments are really fun. I mean, even this 1v1 tournament I was just in are all really fun. I'm having a good time.
It's been an interesting learning experience, at least from my perspective, trying to shoutcast the tournaments. There's been some good learning experiences, ups and downs, but overall it's been a lot of fun, and it's definitely getting better as time goes on. We've seen every time that we do another tournament, the view count goes up and up, so it's cool. It's good stuff. What do you guys expect to see next 3 months or so?
So can't say exactly when, but customs are doing really well. The bugs have just basically slowed down on those, so we're looking over the next couple months. When those are ready, we're going to release them out to you guys, so we're really excited about that, because it means that not only, as you say, Zeus, not only certain people have them right now, but then everybody will be able to have those. And the tickets are out now if you want to get those. The reason we're doing that, some people listed in the forums, they're just trying to gouge us. No, we just want you guys to be able to support what's already there, make sure that those things are tested. And then once things are bug-free on our end, then we're going to release customs to everybody. And we're excited about that for what it's going to do for the community. And it allows everybody to have that control over the arenas.
Yeah, there's a few outstanding things we want to get in, and there's been some polish that we've put in based on user feedback that'll make it in before beta. That should make things a lot easier for custom arenas, for users, and for people playing on them.
Yeah, so maybe that's a good segue. I mean, Grouch, maybe we could talk about some of the improvements for custom arenas and for spectator mode, and some of the feedback we've seen from you guys, and some of the changes that guys like Evan have been making for those. You want to jump right into them and talk about some of it?
I mean, there's a lot of stuff that came out in the last patch as far as polish for spectator mode went. There's a lot of little annoyances that we fixed, like nameplate colors and health bars not always showing up, and making it easier to change spectate targets. A lot of things like that. We've been watching the forums and watching we've been watching every single tournament and all the shoutcasting that's been going on. So a lot of the things that went in directly came from us watching and player feedback. And we'll continue to do that for the foreseeable future. We'll always be watching for feedback and things that we can add to make shoutcasting easier.
Okay. And Zoose had some ideas too, I think, too, about some of the improvements that he had heard about, like the ability to hotkey maybe different players or, move around some stuff. Some of that stuff is easier to do, obviously, than other things based off UI limitations.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're always watching the forums to kind of see what you guys are talking about. And when we're in there, listening to Grouch and Blue call the games and the Maker call the games, we're taking notes and we're passing them back and forth via email. For the last tournament, we actually had 7 to 8 devs that were just in stealth mode, just watching you guys. Like, it was really fun, so.
I don't know if I'm supposed to bring this up or not, but someone was at a baseball game watching, right?
Yeah, I could talk to you a little bit of that. So basically the head honcho, Colin Johansson, as we like to call him. Not Johansson, but hate on it, yeah, Johansson, because he's just so pretty. He's so pretty. He was at a Mariners game here in Seattle, and he was actually streaming the tournament and watching the tournament while he was watching the baseball game as well. As much as you can watch a baseball game. I'm not going to say anything about baseball, but so he was actually just doing that, and then people in the stands around him started scooting over to figure out what this guy was watching. Like, why is this guy so excited? What is he doing? And by the end of the game, he said that people were more interested in watching the GW2 tournament than they were the Mariners game, so they were really excited. So the people around him in the stands were like, "What is this game? What are you doing? Why are you watching this?" So it was really, really cool story to hear.
One thing that at least I've noticed, and I think a lot of people that don't know the game when they come in and start watching, is just the amount of, we've talked about this before, the particle effects.
Sure.
Is there a plan to tone those down?
Yeah,
in the works? Okay.
Yep. So a calling system, basically, we've talked about that before. We want to do it differently in PvP than we do in some of the other areas because you need to see a lot of information in PvP. But if you guys have watched some of the streams, sometimes in really big 4-on-4s, you just lose people, you lose target. It's hard to tell who's doing what to whom and all that kind of stuff. So that's one of those things we want to call those things back. So we're working with the programmers now to make sure that we have that system ready to go.
What about ground effects? Like going down a refuge and say you don't know immediately whose it is? Is there any plan to?
Yep, that's another thing we're going to deal with.
That's definitely come up a lot.
Yep. Okay. As well as in spectator mode too, that can be really hard. You know what I mean? Like if you're just watching just normally, it's really hard to tell sometimes. And even a normal game, whose is whose, is really distracting. So.
Yep. One of the particle effects that could definitely be toned down is the evasive arcana dodge roll in Earth. Looks like a churning Earth, and I do that every 10 seconds, so it's just these rocks everywhere.
Or grenades. I swear, anytime that I get zoomed in on grenades, I get lagged out like crazy.
Chill grenades stuff.
Yeah.
At least you see the grenades, though. That's at least one thing. You at least see just.
Yeah. It's very, very easy to tell, but.
Yeah, again, but it is pretty loud.
It lags me. I'll get 60 FPS, and then I'll spike down to 10 for just an instant when I'm. Sure. It's usually in downstate because you're getting nades to the face, but.
Yep.
Anyways, not that I ever die.
Never. Yeah. I don't die either.
Yeah. Hasn't happened yet.
Ever.
I have a question about spectator mode.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Is there going to be a free camera mode?
Maybe.
So the reason we didn't do a free camera mode, a couple reasons. One is obviously art constraints. The maps weren't built to be viewed from every single angle. And then there's map out problems where people can move their camera outside of the map, and it's just not something we want happening on live streams. And while it's definitely not impossible, we're going to try and get things as easy to use as we can without it before we decide to put it in.
Yeah, but to help with the problem for now, we've talked about doing stuff like making it easier to select people in-game. Instead of having to go through the party UI, you could actually just, do maybe an alt select so that I can see that thief and just click right on them to tell exactly what they're doing. So I don't have to go through the party bar, which is much easier. Also talked about, the camera locations themselves and the orientation, when you click on a camera, the initial positioning. We've talked about revamping that for all the different maps, just to make sure that it plays really well with all the different things we want people to see.
Yep.
Yeah, in my opinion, I think the mansion camera, when you click on the mansion, is really good because you can see the node and the sides and pretty much any fights that go on between that. So if you just take that model and apply it to the other ones, maybe, some of the cameras, I think you just need to maybe zoom out a little bit more if you can. And it'll be good, in my opinion.
Or kind of angle them, the one on Legacy in the middle node is just directly above the node. It's kind of hard to see everything.
Yeah.
That one's problematic.
It's one philosophy we kind of had when trying those. I was talking to, Tyler Bierce has been setting a lot of those up for us, who's not here right now, but hello, Tyler. One thing we've talked about internally is, if you guys have played first-person shooters, like imagine that you had an op at a position. What do you want to be? Where do you want the camera to be so that you can see all angles coming into that position? So that's kind of something that we've thought about. And a lot of those, like they're just like straight down. You can't really see anything coming in, so it's actually really hard to use sometimes. So that's something that we're trying to look at.
I don't know if we touched on it yet. The basically UI indicators for secondary objectives. Mm-hmm. Is that something that we're planning on seeing soon? There was a moment in the last tournament. I hate bringing it up, but we missed a pretty crucial play.
Yep.
And been flamed pretty extremely intensely, I guess, over the past week or so. Make it a little bit easier to see, I guess. You guys have plans for that?
Yeah, it's definitely something we're watching. There's a related issue where while in-game players may not need that as much as spectators so that they can see exactly when everything is happening, but capture point progress is another thing along those same lines where spectators have no idea what's happening because they don't have that UI, and it's definitely something we're looking into, and we have some changes in the pipe to try and get that easier to see.
It's also minimap related too, because a lot of times the minimap won't be telling you the things that you need to know.
Yep.
So we need to make some improvements to that minimap too in spectator mode.
Yep.
I have one last thing about spectator, I guess, before we move on. Actually, a lot of complaints from a lot of players. Basically, what happened during tournaments is that you'll have one team kind of sitting in the observer lobby or like the spectator mode, kind of waiting for the other team to come in. They'll kind of scope out the other team's builds for a little while, and then they'll hop into their team so they can kind of counterplay or whatever.
Yep.
Is there any plans to maybe make it like a waiting room possibly instead, or just to prevent that?
Yeah. Basically, what we've talked about is maybe we lock you in earlier, or we don't let you see one another earlier, like, you know what I mean? So maybe we would say once the game actually starts and you start the countdown of 10, 9, that's when you could actually, if you wanted to, go see the team if it's a competitive game, which means at that point you're not going to jump out of spec mode to go look at people because you only got like 10 seconds to do it. Yep. So maybe we hide that stuff from the other team until that countdown begins to prevent that problem of basically scouting your opponent, which is kind of not cool.
All right.
That sounds like the best way to go about it, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So we're gonna see some new content for PvP coming soon, right?
Yeah, we are. We've also got some changes too. Evan's been maybe we could talk about the some of the rating stuff and
yeah, we can talk about ratings now if you'd like.
Yeah,
let's do it.
So there's a few changes coming down the pipe. I'm sure you guys have all seen the screenshots posted on the forums of why is this guy in my game? It's pretty much always the same case. There's some new player, or at least new to rated matches coming in and getting matched with very experienced players, and it doesn't make for very even games, that's for sure. So there will be a change to try to mitigate that as much as possible to try and get rid of the outliers in the matchmaking system, so that low players or new players always get matched with new players, and then they won't be matched with high players anymore. Another thing coming with ratings is less volatility for the leaderboards. So basically every time you win and lose, you're not going to be shooting up and down as many ranks as you were before. So that'll be huge. And then the other thing, like I mentioned, is leaderboard decay.
Yep.
It's something that we are definitely looking into as well.
I heard a lot of complaints about that, so that'll be a good change.
Yep.
Definitely for the campers. There was one guy, I don't know if he's still up there. Rami-san has been up on the NA leaderboards, and he hasn't played a single game in like pretty much since they came out.
Yep.
So it's just interesting. That's kind of a cool change, though. Will it be significant? Does it take into effect like how long it's been since you played a game, or is it just gonna be like a slow, gradual drop?
Right now, probably a slow gradual.
It's a slow gradual drop.
We're just watching to make sure that it's fair for everybody, and that's just seemed like the easiest thing to do. It's also very easy for people to understand that everybody realizes they all have the same decay if they don't play, and it scales with where you are. But obviously, it's fair to everybody.
You have any idea of how long the decay period's gonna be? Like what the inactivity period is?
We haven't talked about the details publicly. We have tests internally, and just like we did before with leaderboards before we showed them to you guys, we had them running internally so we could see all your ranks, we could see all that stuff happening, we can see the matchmaking. That's what we're doing again, is we're just kind of watching those things to see if the decay is doing what we want it to do. So.
All right. Well, there was new content though. We're gonna move on to that, I guess. Is there anything you can talk about there?
Yeah. So
we
do have a new map coming in. I think you guys saw there was a thread. People were talking about it. Some stuff that came out. We're going to be having a new map coming out, which is Skyhammer. It's kind of the nickname for it. This is Tyler Beer Special. It's going to have some really cool mechanics to it. It's going to have basically jump pads. Some of the floor can fall away, so you can trap people, catch them coming into certain positions, make them fall through the floor, that type of stuff. There's also a really powerful cannon on the map that you're going to be vying for. So we're going to have more details on that as they get closer to that, but we'll probably do a blog like we have before and give you guys all the details on those things. But then also with that, and this is something that we watched the tournaments for you guys. The secondary mechanics is something we've been really paying attention to and seeing, which mechanics give the most comeback potential for you guys in those maps, which ones have the biggest clutch plays, which ones have the biggest swings. So we're trying to look at the secondary mechanics and make sure that we balance those correctly. So even on like Forest of Niflhel, we could go back to that one and look at it again to make sure that those points are correct. The boat, if you will, to use a Guild Wars 1 term on Legacy of the Foefire, to make sure that boat is actually strong enough and it's hard enough that teams can't just walk right in as a 5-man and push down your Lord and there's nothing you can do. So we've talked about maybe putting some other abilities on those NPCs that can actually heal the Lord or cleanse the Lord, so that you have to take down those NPCs first, which buys the defending team a little bit more time to react. We're just looking at all those different types of things, and a lot of that's just feedback players can give, just if it's too easy or too hard. That's stuff that we can adjust. So we're looking at secondaries for all the other maps that we have out right now to make sure that they're giving you guys the play that you want.
So you mentioned Skyhammer has a cannon on the map, so kind of the same, I guess the same secondary mechanic as like Battle of Kylo. Is that a map you want to see in competitive play, or is it going to be something more casual?
For now, we're gonna basically put it out and see what the fans do with it. We're kind of watching, and this is why we watch the tournament rotations that you guys put out to see what you guys enjoy, and we're kind of letting that drive it to see if we want to not maybe have that one bump up against some of the other maps you guys like, or if it is a new map you guys want to get in. We're looking at, well, why do the other maps see so much play in tournaments? So we can go either way with that one, but for right now, it's probably going to start off as casual, and then we'll try to push it into tournaments if that's something that the fan base responds to.
Temple is a map that I really want to see in the tournament rotation. Like the buffs and stuff will be really fun to watch, and it's just my favorite map actually. But there's so many ways for people to take advantage of the water right now.
Yeah, you can double heal and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, is your plan to like change underwater combat, or just like not have water in that map for now or something?
Not to change underwater combat. We do want to put some fixes into basically what you can do with like a double heal, double skills.
Yeah.
But we don't want to take the water out because you would just die as soon as you hit the water, like coming down. So we've got to have the water there for obvious reasons. So but we want to make that more balanced so that it's not something that you can cheese, which right now you can cheese. But like you say, Fance, like I know you like on a nickname basis, but it's a short nickname even, right? But like basically, yeah, that map's seen a lot of really cool play if you guys watch. It's got a lot of really cool comeback mechanics. It's got a lot of really cool play off of the points because the buffs actually are really powerful. So that's something that we want to push even more. So that's another one of our maps that we really enjoy.
Do you guys actually plan on putting water in more maps going forward? I think the general consensus from at least the PvPers is that we really don't like the water.
The consensus is that people don't like that, yeah. So that's one of those
too
things for
OP.
tournament maps, probably not, because we've just had so many players say that they don't like that in their tournament maps.
Yep.
But for fun maps, we always pictured, Capricorn being a fun map. That it's fine there. We just realized that most players don't like it in their competitive maps, so we'll probably keep that out for competitive maps.
Okay. All right, good to know.
I think there should be like a way to kill people in water quicker or something, because if like say we're fighting over the middle buff on top and I die to a thief or something, I just use my misform and drop down into the water and he has to follow me, so that just like, and it takes him a while to kill me in the water, so it's like a big waste of his time. So anytime I die there, I always do that, and I either res or they waste a bunch of time like going down there.
Yep, it's one of the things we've looked at. Also, rangers right now are really strong underwater when they're down because basically their pet heals them for a lot. That's another thing. If you could just stomp out, quote, the ranger, that would make that more balanced as well. So that's something that we're looking at, of maybe just you rip the mask off their face and they instantly die. I don't know. It's hard to, if you can imagine, it's hard to get the on land, we know your character is always going to be.
Yeah.
We know what animation we can play. We can kind of lock you on. Let me throw this thing into your body. You die instantly. It makes sense. Underwater, it's a lot harder because you can still move around. Right, so that's one of those things that we want to keep the joy of movement for the person who's drowning, but still have a way to finish those people out quickly that looks good. So that's the issues, if you will, with that.
All right, moving forward a little bit here to something that a lot of people have questions
Sure.
on and talk about all the time. Probably one of the most important topics actually in the game right now. Solo queue, again, revisiting. What's the? Oh, look at it. I like the looks. What do we got?
Yes, solo queue is really important to us. We know the majority of the player base wants it, and we definitely need it. It will definitely be paired with a new leaderboard. We'll have split leaderboards, but no ETA on it, but it's definitely one of the most important things to us.
Yep, it's really important. And the forums, as you say, are really big. There's a thread right now. Your top 3 dream list, or there's two. There's two. The one is like the dream patch. The other one is what are your top 3 for PvP. And balance and solo queue were really high on that list. So it's important to us as well.
And rewards.
And rewards, yes.
Will we see a wipe on the leaderboards when the new ones come in?
We may, but since it's going to be split off, what we might do is we might give it like a leeway time to kind of build up the things, but let you guys know that those are being built up, and then we might just go from there. So we're not sure yet what's going to be best for the players. So we'll have to see as we get closer to that.
Do you guys ever consider like doing like season wipes kind of for leaderboards, or are they going to stay pretty static?
Yep, and that's pretty standard. You see that in other games as well. So that's one of the options that we do have that we're entertaining, because fans are used to that stuff in other games.
All right. Are we going to see any changes to the current matchmaking system with the? I mean, obviously, I'm hoping that you take the ability out for people to queue in solo against teams. Is that going to go away?
So we have two ways of thinking about it. Solo queue right now for us basically just means solo queue, which means it's only single people, which means you won't have any other teams coming in there to mess with you. It's just solo queue like you would expect in, for instance, like other MOBAs. Like, if you've seen a MOBA, that's kind of how they deal with their solo queue. But we've talked about maybe if you want to do solo queue in teams, maybe you can do that as well. Although right now it's 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4, and 5-man teams. But maybe you can also solo in the team ladder if you want to. So we're still open to that option. So we'll have to see.
What about duo queuing in the solo?
So we're not really sure, like, what is the cutoff for that? Then it basically becomes like all of a sudden maybe the problem is, well, you can't really play solo queue unless you have a partner. So we're right back to the same issue. We've kind of recreated.
I don't think
the same
it'll work
issue
that great in this game.
Yeah, but we're open to the idea. That's kind of the debate internally. So when we get it ready, we're going to throw it out there and see how it feels. Zeus, what is so funny, dude? You're laughing.
he's been over there beaming the
I'm
whole
getting
time.
Are you
spammed.
watching Daily Show in the
Like,
background?
my Skype is getting spammed by Helseth and a bunch of people. They need to stop. He's trying to purposely make me laugh. I don't know. That's it.
Okay, we just wondered what was going on. I don't know. So
I
some
hate
other
you,
stuff.
Helseth.
You want to talk about this at all?
Can we see that
Sure,
paper?
I mean,
Can we see that sheet? Can we see what's on that?
Yeah, sure.
So templates is something that comes up a lot. We definitely recognize its importance.
So why don't you explain what we mean when we say templates?
Okay. So a template would be something that basically saves a build configuration for your character, templates, weapons, utility skills, and then would let you swap out or between them with one click, basically, so you could change your loadout entirely without having to clear traits, respend, go buy things from the vendor, et cetera, et cetera. And our vision of that would be very, very similar to GW1. It'd be very community friendly, something that meshes well with all the build sites, and as far as having codes and saving all the right things, and it's definitely something we'll do. Still very important to us. No ETA, but it will certainly happen for sure.
Oh yeah, there's so many small things you could do in the Mists to like promote people like getting in easily. Like I remember the first time I got in the Mists, I was like, well, what is all the gear I can even use in here? Like I have to find all the vendors and stuff like that. And it could just be organized better, I think.
Yeah, so one of the things we could do with templates is we could start characters off with default templates.
Yep.
So beginners have something to use without having to guess basically what would be a good loadout, because there's so many options.
Yep.
Will that dual template thing only be for PvP? Or are you planning on doing a PvE site as well?
For now, it'll just be PvP probably.
Yeah, there are certain difficulties that come up with using it in PvE, because in PvE weapons, an armor has stat combos, and in PvP it's only appearances. So the complexity is different between the two. We'd probably start with PvP for the template system.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
So does that mean I don't have to make 5 Ellies now?
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
Yes.
But
Still
it's not
does.
just that.
Need one for every race.
Also, what's that?
He needs one for every race anyways, he doesn't care.
I only play humans. Humans for life, dude.
Best
I play
animations.
as well. No, I hear you.
Yes.
I agree.
Char?
No, Char.
Duh,
are horrible.
cats with
They're
horns.
Cats, dude. They're
Chars
cats.
are pretty cool too. I just
Um,
don't like Asuras. They need to take more damage, You guys need to make them take more damage for being too tiny. I can't see what they're doing.
It is a
So
problem,
that's
especially in
one of the-
tournaments.
I
actually said-
actually find it harder to play against a bunch of big characters. Like if there's a bunch of Mesmers playing Norns, I can't even tell what's going on.
Yeah.
You mentioned, this is a completely different topic, and I'm going to drop this one on you real quick here. You mentioned Guild Wars 1, and this is something that me and you talked about the other day for a little bit. GVG, and how Fofire really is kind of the same theory behind it. I didn't play Guild Wars 1, as a little disclaimer,
Sure.
so this is all secondhand information, but Fofire has the same basic mechanic as GVG did, and we're actually seeing, at least in tournaments, that Fofire is actually one of the viewer favorites in terms of like the clutch plays, and like the most exciting gameplay we get is on that map. It's always secondary mechanic related, and it's on that map usually. So did you have any, looking back, have you like looked at like how GVG was in this game and kind of second guess the opinion on moving with Conquest, or do you feel comfortable with the decision going forward?
Sure. No, it's a great question. One of the problems with GVG was that basically it got into stalemates a lot of times. So we basically had to introduce this mechanic called VOD, which was victory or death, which basically said at the end of 25 minutes, if neither team has killed the other lord, then all the NPCs for each player, or sorry, for each team, goes to the middle of the map, and they had this huge, big brawl to decide the game. A lot of maps actually were conducive to playing very defensive builds that would just come down to that VOD play at the end, which was actually really boring. It wasn't that fun to watch. So what we decided to do is, if you look at, as I was doing the Legacy of the Foe map, I was thinking, well, what fixes that? Well, if there's actually 3 cap points that you have to vie over in order to keep people from winning, then that kind of pulls you out of your boat. So you can't just sit in the base and keep your lord up the entire time. So it kind of fixes one of the broken mechanics that we had in GW1. So that's why I like that balance there. Now for the actual points, I mean, we've thrown out the idea of what if the guild lord, as the course of the game goes on, is worth more and more points. So that by the, if it's been going for 8, 9, 10 minutes, it's actually worth 500 points, which means that at any time, like it could be 480 to 100. I can just actually go for the guild lord kill at that time. Maybe that would be really cool for players to see. So it's something that we've been talking about internally. I don't think that 500 all the time is right, especially in pub play, because it's just a zerg for each other's lord. That just feels like it wouldn't be too good. But maybe over time, the lord is worth more points. That actually might be really fun to see, which is the core mechanic that we had that kind of galvanized and supported all the GVG maps in Guild Wars 1.
Speaking of the secondary mechanics, I guess sounds like you're trying to change them quite a bit, or looking into changing them, at least experimenting. Do you have any ideas for more secondary mechanics coming out besides, like you mentioned, Skyhammer has the single treb? What are some other ideas you guys have coming up?
We actually have a lot of old ideas that we've had from suggestions from players over the years. We actually have a list internally of all these different ideas, and so we're kind of just going through that list, and we'll have meetings about, okay, what do we think are the top 3 most viable at this point? And then we'll look at them and we'll kind of like do a quick, Darren Claypool's our map artist. He'll just quickly throw down a gray box version of the map, and we'll just slap on a really quick and dirty mechanic, and we'll just try it. So it's a lot of the stuff that's actually been on the forums. We want to get more tactical play in, but the thing that you guys have brought up a lot is just the clutch play. We really want to have those clutch plays in tournament maps. So that's kind of the recurring theme in all the new mechanics we're trying, and just making sure we get as much clutch play and comeback mechanic potential as possible.
All right, well, this is for Zoose then, and I'll ask Phanta afterwards.
Okay.
So for the last tournaments, we saw like MIM come back from like a point deficit and get 150 points, and actually they won the game, right? The other team kind of had it, they were in a safe spot right before that. So do you feel like the secondary mechanics they kind of rob teams of victories, or do you think they get outplayed? Like, how do you feel about that?
I think the secondary mechanic on Fofire is a little much like what you guys were saying. It can't be 150 because of the current meta of the game. Like if you take 4 DPS or even Condis and stuff, and you just rush the Lord, there's really not a whole lot that you can do. Like there's not enough peels on one team to take care of the Lord, whereas the other team has the advantage because if your door is down and they're coming for the Lord, there's very little you can do to stop them. Where like protection won't help them, healing them won't really help them, and the heal is like super telegraphed. Like he raises his sword in the air.
It's supposed to be, yeah.
Well,
So,
they mentioned possibly throwing more abilities on, making him a little bit more dynamic and difficult to fight, which is kind of an interesting idea. I think definitely making it tougher so like, people can't 1v1 the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah,
kind of
Total
an all-in.
1v1 Lords are OP.
Yeah.
No more of that.
All right, Fen, how do you feel about that?
I don't know. It's a really hard one because I remember way back in like the beta weekends, it was 100 points and literally nobody went for it. Because by the time it's 100 points, like if you win a team fight, you might as well just sit on your nodes.
Might as well
you're
just
gonna
hold the
win.
map, yeah.
Yeah, you're just going to win the game anyways. So 150 points is good. I don't know, maybe like I liked the idea that maybe there should be healers, like the caster minions should heal the Lord or something. Like, I don't know, it's a hard one for me to figure out. I'm not sure exactly how to fix it.
I think the secondaries on Forest are good though, and
Oh,
the one
Go ahead.
the one on Kylo's okay. The Treb on Kylo's okay.
I think Trebs are the least interesting and engaging mechanic out of all of them. Just because you have like a clear, like this just happened. They have this many points because of that action. Whereas Treb is more of like an attrition thing. Like I'm gonna keep throwing these Trebs at mid, and we'll wear them down slowly, and we might win that team fight eventually. But it's still kind of in the air. Whereas the secondary objectives on Forest and Foefire are much more tangible. Like we have those points now. It's ours.
Like, I think Forrest and Kylo, the secondary mechanics don't make it enough of an impact. Like, that game against Sleepy and MIM that I was in the other day, that was one of the few times that the secondary mechanic is going to, like, decide the end of the game on Forrest. Because they got the Forest kill or whatever. And, well, on Kylo, it does have a big impact, but I don't know, it's just not as, like, viewer friendly.
Exciting
I
to
guess.
watch, yeah.
Yeah, it's not as exciting, I guess. But the players like it. It's really fun to play around. But
That's the problem I think with the trebs is that strategically I think as a player it's really cool because they're trebbing us. Okay, we have very direct ways that we can deal with that now. We can spread up, we can send somebody to get them off of their treb, we can try to kill it. Maybe we throw grenades with an NG, we get up there, we start to just take down and DPS out their treb. So there's a cool play to it, there's a counterplay, but I think you guys are right that it's more of a balanced, kind of metered kind of pace to the game. It doesn't have the excitement that maybe some of the other mechanics have.
yeah.
All right. Well, that was all good. I think talk a little bit about. I think a lot of people came here for some class discussion, and
Yeah, sure. We can jump into that.
I guess the main things that we want to talk about today, we kind of mentioned this beforehand, is mostly Warrior and Necro. I feel like I think the general consensus or the general opinion is that they are kind of the underdogs. And we mentioned
Sure.
before, we talked about how, at least for right now, it's the main classes or the main two classes are professions, rather, that you have to build your comp around to make them successful, rather than a lot of other classes like in elementaries, you can kind of throw into any comp and they can, do they can do a lot of roles depending on their build, whereas Necro and Warrior, again, are very one track. So what do we see coming down the pike for Necromancer starting off?
Sure. So there's a few different things. The biggest two things I think with those two classes is if you noticed, I think H-Man tried to run a Warrior. He tried to sub in for somebody. If you guys actually were watching from his point of view a few times, and he was getting bursted down really, really quickly. A lot of times there was little he could do. If his shield block was down, he just got taken out almost instantly. So you look at both of those classes, and a lot of times the thing that they suffer from is that in really big fights, they have a hard time standing up to really focus fire. In smaller sets, I think that the Necro's probably fine. Same thing with the Warrior in smaller sets. And by a smaller set, I mean like a 1-on-1, 1-on-2, and a 2-on-2. But as soon as it gets to be a big fight, they have a much harder time. They don't have those misforms. They don't have the Elixir S's. They don't have the stealth. They don't have those abilities to just really quickly reset aggro against an opponent team and make sure that they're not taken down. So those are the things that we're addressing. Also, we're trying to look at Death Shroud itself for the Necro and see how that's going to feel. By increasing that, the ability to accumulate Death Shroud, because a lot of times that is your defense as a Necro. We don't want to just throw on stability. We don't want to just throw on vigor. We don't want to just throw on tons of protection, because then you're basically right back to being what the Guardian is or what some of the other classes are. So we don't want to just throw all those boons back onto you. We'd rather that the Necro has a lot stronger hold on people with their conditions, and that with Death Shroud is how they protect themselves. And for the Warrior, we're actually going to be increasing the amount of stun breakers they have as well through their utilities to give them some more chances to get out of some of those focus fire situations, as well as helping them deal with conditions. So we did some trait changes before. I'm trying to move quickly because Evan's just sitting here. We did some trait changes before.
Warriors.
Yeah, he loves his Warrior. All he has is Blood Score Warrior. So we're trying to make sure that those two classes can send up to focus fire and then conditions, and then try to make sure that we don't put too much of everything on every class. For instance, a lot of the Necros are crying out, give us all the mobility, but we don't want to do mobility. We had it before in beta on the Death Shroud 2. It was actually a ground targeted teleport, and it just meant that you just could not kill a Necro, because if you did get a hold of them, they had Death Shroud, and then if they got kind of close to down, they would just teleport away, and it was just really hard to kill them with that class mechanic. So that's why we're trying to be really careful with the balance on those and make them different from the other classes, so that class comps are actually important. It's not just who has the best vigor, who has the best uptime on stability, that kind of stuff, because then we're right back to, okay, then all of a sudden the Guardian's never taken, because Necro has too much stability and protection, and they have wells, and they have condition removal, and they have boon removal. The Necro is just too powerful. So we're trying to be careful with those things and make sure everybody fits their own role, is what we're trying to do.
I talked with Ghibli and Zombify, two of some NA Necros, and we were kind of just going over what they think that the Necro needs to bring them up in terms of competitive play. And I guess the biggest complaint was disengage. You mentioned before, Elixir S, Misform, everything, you can kind of get out of the fight and reset. And that's one thing that the Necromancer completely lacks. Obviously, making them invuln seems a little broken. But the teleport, you mentioned actually Death Shroud 2. We did talk about how that was back in beta. And I think it was a different game back then. I think Necro was a little bit more overpowered back then. But I think to me it's something that could be entertained at this point. I think a blink would probably put them in a perfect spot. Most of the time that you see it in Necro, because lack of stability, they get trained down within a stun or within whatever, and they have no way of getting out. So it's just it's just interesting. I guess you kind of shot it down already, but basically what they came up with was a blink a blink would essentially make them a little easier to disengage and allow them to stay in a fight a little bit longer.
Yep. A blink would be much easier. I think what we'd like to try first, though, is to look at their accumulation efficiencies for Death Shroud. That instead of trying to blink away, that they're just getting more and more Death Shroud, so they can stay, to use an MMA or a boxing term, they can kind of stay in the pocket with somebody. that they don't need to jump away, they don't need to grab distance. They can just basically stay with somebody, stay close, because they can win that attrition fight through their Death Shroud. So that's one thing we're looking at, is those amounts for Death Shroud accumulation coming up, so that they can actually stay in the fights more often through Death Shroud use and manipulation.
What about Death Shroud being affected by other players healing them? Because I know there's so many times when Symbolic used to play Necro, I'd be like, I'm going to heal you, Symbolic, and he switches Death Shroud right then, and I just waste everything.
Yep.
It's really frustrating.
So on the forums, though, that's a great point, because if you have regen, it's not helping you when you're in Death Shroud. If somebody goes to, if they're throwing out some heals, exactly like you're saying, you're not benefiting from that as the Necro, because you're in Death Shroud, which is literally a different health pool than what you would normally have. So it's definitely something that we've looked at, is will they become just completely overpowered at that point, or do we need to make them more self-sufficient when they are in Death Shroud with their number 4 right now? Does that just need to be more efficient than it is right now? And the reason that I say this to all the Necros in the world, there was a time in beta people played, that's all that you saw dominating the ladders, because they could either go perma Death Shroud, they could go perma protection through well spam with the ability to get prod every time they use the well, or they could go with these insane burst DPS axe builds that would just eat even heavy targets. They would eat you alive to like 20%, and whatever was left in health got eaten up by Condis. Like they were just beasts. So we're trying to make sure that we don't make them too strong. Warriors, the same thing. There was a time way back when Warriors would take you from, I don't care what your build was, they would take you from 100 to 0 with an Eviscerate or with an 100 Blades. Like, it was just over. There was nothing you could do if they got a good stun on you. So we're trying to make sure that those two guys come back, but they're not the broken things that they were way back when. So
I did have some suggestions that I promised them I would try to work in.
Go for it.
Or just some things that we talked about, whatever. One of them actually had an interesting idea. The Blood Magic tree, I guess, is kind of an often talked about tree, just because they have the lifesteal mechanic, but doesn't really work that well in competitive play.
15
anyways.
in Blood is not good. I'll just throw it out there. The Vampiric, it needs some more numbers, I think. It's just not good.
What we talked
But
about
keep going.
is maybe making that scale with healing power, if anything. And it actually opened up a lot of build diversity, being able to run like a Cleric's Amulet or some other, like a Valk's Amulet for like a power build, something like that. You'd open up a lot of build diversity. It's just an interesting suggestion. You mentioned this, that you actually already touched on this, but they mentioned the stability and vigor was something that, it's like, I think they have the least access to it, or second least access to stability and vigor. Mentioned maybe moving stability to something like spectral armor, which is, I think it's like a 90-second cooldown at the moment, but maybe making it more like Armor of Earth. Just as a whatever. And then also Bone Minion, 3-second delay on Blast Finisher, they said seemed to be problematic.
Yeah.
It's very hard to land in actual combo fields.
Also, I think one thing that you might see in this change, is something that we're playing with right now, is the activation times for a lot of the Necro CC skills are pretty slow. Especially the minion activations are actually really slow. So you have to summon a minion, then you have to hope it's in position, and then you have to take some cast time to actually get it out, which is really not that strong. If you look at the Ranger pets for a couple patches ago, we decreased the activation time on a lot of those abilities, and Rangers can actually use some of their activated abilities now more strategically than they could before. So Necros are probably going to get a lot of that this coming balance patch, because a lot of their stuff is just too slow to actually use correctly. So, and then the vigor stuff and the stability, again, we don't want to give them too much. Where I'm also afraid that if we make spectral armor too good, that it just becomes mandatory for all Necros. If it's just on that ability, then it just becomes something that you have to bring. And a lot of Necros are already complaining about they have to either bring Sing of Undeath, they have to bring Epidemic, or Corrupt. You know what I mean? So if there's another key utility that you have to bring, then it just cuts into your build. So I'd rather spread out the defense to all over the class with the Death Shroud and the accumulation of Death Shroud, rather than just having it in one utility. Same thing with like Endure Pain for Warrior. That thing's a really high cooldown. Like, it used to be really strong, but now it's a really high cooldown for that skill. I think that might come down soon. So stuff like that's what we're looking at.
All right. Well, speaking of Warrior, I guess the other.
The other fresh.
The other one. I was going to use the word. Yes, exactly. I talked with a couple guys. I talked with H-Man, I talked with Schwarheit, I talked with Defective, and we sat around for actually a very long time, just kind of going over the Warrior and what they thought would be the best, or like basically what role the Warrior played right now and what it should be, or where it could go possibly. They felt that for right now, Warrior, it's too reliant on CC to land damage. Like for 100 Blades Warrior, obviously you need to be able to land that 100 Blades, or a Bull's Rush with 100 Blades, or you're not going to land it, or it's going to be very difficult anyways. It just seemed like all the builds, especially like Hammer, the activation times on the abilities are very long, and the animations are very slow, and it's very telegraphed, and it seems like as long as you don't get caught by one of them, it's very easy to get out. I mean, obviously if they're running like Leg Specialist and they cripple you, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, but they just seem just very telegraphed and very, I guess, clunky weapon set to use. It's just an interesting complaint there, because I kind of saw it You're smiling at me like I'm an idiot.
I don't want to give away too much. I'm trying not to give away too much, but there may or may not be a new trait that deals exactly with that, which basically says that leg specialists in particular, they have a much easier time with multiple weapons. Once they get a hold of somebody, they can stay on them, and they don't have to bring utilities to keep that person in check. So we think that's going to help them a lot. A lot of weapons can just, when a warrior gets on you, you need to be really careful because they're probably going to keep you there in the fight. Same thing with the Necro. So if we want to make an attrition class, like there's just basic stuff you have to have. Like Grouch, like you're nailing it on the head. Like if I have to land a CC first before I can do anything, if I miss that CC or if an Aegis goes off or if I get blinded, why am I here? Like I could just be a DPS Ellie who can just regen, remove condies, and put out constant DPS. Like that's just going to make it into more comps. So those are the things we got to be careful of.
All right, and I did have the short list. Sorry, Evan, we'll get to you eventually, man. I'm sorry. You just look so handsome over there. We'll get to you.
He is.
So
Don't
left
worry.
out.
Don't worry.
No one wants to talk about programming.
So unsuspecting foe, 50% crit against stun targets. Only works on stun targets though. So for example, like if you I didn't test this personally, but I had it from multiple sources. It doesn't work this way, so I'm going to trust them. But so if you use like Bull's Rush, that's actually a knockdown, and it won't actually factor in the extra 50% crit damage, or the extra 50% crit rather.
It's too narrow of a trait, right?
Right. We're talking about if it was to open to all CC at least, except for all CC essentially, they would open up I think the possibility of using Soldier's Amulet, kind of alleviating some of the tankiness problems with Warrior. Maybe. It'd make them very CC dependent, obviously. You're smiling again. Very CC dependent. You have to land that CC, but you would also...
History lesson. We had something like that way back in beta, that warriors could just eat through anything that was just basically seed in any form. And then we had this really, really strong shutdown mesmer that could either daze you or stun you or knock you down with the right combo. And those two together would just basically spike everything in 2 to 3 seconds. And they would just go around from point to point as a two-man team, winning all 2-on-2s, which is why we kind of brought that back a little bit. But I think that the trait now is too weak, so it might come back up. But that's one of the things that we had before, was a two-man team that would just, the warrior would just destroy you as soon as the mesmer got 1 CC off on you. But it's a great example of something that used to be really good that's not strong anymore because it's too specific.
All right, Zoose, you're kind of known for your elementalist, but you have been known to play warrior on occasion. Is there any reason that you swapped back over to elementalist? Is there a specific reason why you aren't playing warrior right now?
Yeah. Okay. So like, first, I talked to like 3 warriors. I talked to like Schwarheit, Mr. Gregor, and I talked to Tarsus, and like. We talked for like 2 hours last night, maybe more than that, about suggestions that they thought. And actually, I share the same opinion as a lot of them do. I think Soldier's Amulet is really strong on Warrior, and it's overlooked. It alleviates a lot of the tankiness problems, and at that point, though, you kind of get pigeonholed into you have to be like a CC chaining monster, and you don't really do like a ton of damage, but over time you'll whittle people down. That's if you can get to them. So like the problem with that is conditions like chill and cripple and immobilize just destroy warriors, and there's not a lot of way to go about it. So like one thing that was really interesting, what I think is a good suggestion is how about making some type of trait where you have for every condition that a warrior has, they take a percentage less damage, like maybe 2% less damage per condition that they have, so that when they do get conditions on them and stuff like that, like with the direction of Dogged Mark, I thought that was a really good trait, and it just needs more stuff like that. Maybe just through trait lines, and then what that opens up is you have more viable builds.
Yep.
Where you can only have like maybe just have like Dogged Mark, and then for like the 20-point tree, you have something close to the condition, like less damage per condition. So I mean, like more stuff like that. I think like warriors wouldn't have to invest so much into like speccing hardcore into the defensive tree. Because like the problem with warriors is like they don't really fit a niche, whereas like elementalist is good at like doing everything. Thief kills stuff, guardian's bunker. Warrior is kind of like in between all of that, but it's like the low tier hero that nobody really needs on a team. And to be honest, even if you guys make warrior OP and you change the meta, I'd like to see more warriors in teams anyway. So it's whatever. Like I don't really care. I'd like to see warriors rise from the dead or something, you know? Because I mean, I'm a fan of warriors.
Cooldown reduction on man, what's it called?
Mending?
No, the thing that makes you invincible for a while.
Oh, Endure Pain.
Endure Pain. And you said you're going to somehow provide in traits for, they're easier for them to stick on a target. So maybe they'll drop like Bull's Charge and they'll take Endure Pain, and it'll be on a lower cooldown. And I think that's really good because I think one of the warrior's main weaknesses is thieves. Like, there's no way a warrior is going to stick on a thief that's shadow stepping everywhere.
Yep.
And then if they pop their frenzy, they're just going to get like backstabbed for like 15k or something. But if they're running a low cooldown and 0 pain, they're going to do much better against thieves.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason I think that is because warriors actually do pretty good against our comp, and we don't run a thief. But they don't do good against other people. Like, maybe we're just bad against warriors, but I'm hoping that's not the case.
This is the secret of beating TP. You just have to run warrior.
5 warriors
Yeah.
and five signet. 5 signet.
Yes.
Yes.
Five warriors.
Very strong. Unbeatable.
John
25
Peters, love you.
signets.
All right. What you mentioned something about trying to improve Warriors' defense against Condis.
Mm-hmm.
What are we looking at? What are we
So,
thinking?
yeah, Zeus brought up the dog and march. I mean, more things like that. We wonder if maybe the numbers are too low on that one. You know what I mean? Maybe it needs to come up more. Also, just their ability to get conditions off of themselves. Not just conditions that are going to be immobilize or chill or cripple, things that inhibit their mobility, but also just they take so much damage from just dots. And it eats right through that heavy armor that they have. They can't get them off, which means a lot of times, if you look at other classes like you look at the ability for a Guardian to just get rid of Condis, they don't take a lot of damage from those types of things. But Warriors really do. They really have to think about it, and they don't have great ways to get rid of those. So we're trying to look at making sure that other builds that they have can actually deal with those Condis to keep them competitive in PvP. Because right now they basically have to be babysat by a lot of comps that just basically keep them fresh and keep them clean so they can get to the things that they need to get to. And you're right, if they can get to something, they can sometimes mess it up, but a lot of times you're investing another character to babysit that guy, which means that they can't function on their own, which means they're a liability. So a lot of times you'll just see other things make it into comps over those warrior builds. So that's what we're trying to address.
All right. Have you kind of on the same subject here? Mending has a 25-second cooldown, and the heal only does, I think it's like, is it 5.3 in that ballpark?
It's a 5.6.
5.6? Okay. I'm impressed that you know off the top of your head. Nice.
I was looking at it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
Comparing it to other gens.
So, with how large like a Berserker Amulet Warrior runs, like what is it, 21k, 22k HP pool, I think.
About
and the heal only does 5.6. Is it? I think the cooldown is really long, and the heal is still fairly small compared to no.
It's just not good.
Okay.
I mean, compared to some of the other heals, you'll see across the board the ability for like an Ellie to they can just get so many Condis off themselves at all times, and they heal really well. The Warrior just doesn't have that, proportionate to what they want to have for a health pool. So you've mentioned one of the areas we want to help too is the heals for Warrior.
Yeah.
We think that the heals are just not strong for some of those.
Help me out with the name of this one. The one that's affected by adrenaline is actually, we talked about this yesterday. It's actually almost counterintuitive because using it refills your health bar or refills your adrenaline bar rather.
Mm-hmm.
It seems like it almost more beneficial for if you had a small adrenaline bar to have more health because it basically doesn't want you to use your burst skill, I guess.
Right, which is not cool.
Yeah, and then it refills it afterwards. And most of the time, if you want the full heal, you have to have full burst, and then it refills your bar that's already full.
Yeah.
So it's kind of counterintuitive. I don't know. It's interesting. Is
Yeah,
there any plans?
we have traits actually that are going to be interacting with those types of things for the next balance patch. So those traits, you'll see you'll start doing some more things off, what can I do when I get that adrenaline and when I start dumping it? We want to give the warrior more benefits from their burst skills when they start to use that adrenaline. So that's one of the places that we're going to be looking at. Can't give too many details, but you can kind of read between the lines of what we're kind of saying and connect all the dots and kind of see how we're going to be helping out the warrior with that stuff in PvP. Because in PvE, they're actually pretty disgusting in a lot of comps. They're just absolutely, they just eat through everything.
We did.
Yeah, he does. Blackscore does.
We did miss one thing on the Necro. Any updates on the fifth skill for Death Shroud?
Yeah. So before we get to that, let's talk about something else. Weakness is going to be changing a little bit at some point in the near future. Right now, weakness sucks a lot at shutting down a crit build. It shuts down pretty much, a normal build, but it doesn't do anything to crit. So we're playing with the idea that maybe weakness just shuts down. It has a fumble chance on all attacks, which means that now weakness is not going to be nearly as bad, which means if a warrior does get in your face and he's throwing weakness at you, all of a sudden, everything that you do back to him is less. So like the thief that you talked about earlier, Phant, like now that thief, all those crits, they're getting negated, their fumbles at the same percentage as his normal hits. Now, the percentage would have to come down, obviously, to make it balance, but that means that weakness is a much stronger mechanic all of a sudden. So we're looking at that condition becoming stronger. And then with that, that's going to play into the Necro. Again, if they can throw weakness on you and it shuts down all attacks, not just non-crits, that's going to be really big as well. For the 5 skill, we're looking at making sure that we give them that sustained ability that we want out of Death Shroud. And playing off of the 2 skill, I feel like there's not much synergy between the Life Blast, the 2. Obviously, the Fear has It's just good. It's one of the better things that they have, as long as they're not dealing with stability or Aegis. So what we want to do with the Necro, just like with the Warriors, we want to make the Necro do more damage up close, probably in Death Shroud, than they would far away, to incentivize that use of the 2 and the use of the 3. The 4, giving it a little bit more tankiness, and then the 5 skill we want to, I won't give it away yet, but we want it to have more synergy with all that. So we didn't just look at, let's just slap on a 5 skill. We said, let's rework a lot of the Death Shroud to make sure that it has more synergy. And that, in addition to the weakness change, is actually, internally, is actually changing a lot of the balance. Weakness, all of a sudden, is something that Thieves do not like, Rangers do not like, Ellies really do not like weakness all of a sudden. It's really starting to shut down their DPS. So we'll have to see how that plays out.
Okay. All right.
So Necros are going to be OP, is what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, the thing, too, that people forget is that a lot of these things, like Warriors, like, they're really close. If we just made 1 or 2 small tweaks to being, you couldn't get away from a Warrior and it would kill you every time. Like, a lot of the classes, I know people say that, Necros are horrible and that Warriors are horrible, but even as Phant said, like, there are just some gaps where Warriors are great and Necros are great. So we have to be really careful with the numbers that we don't just blow everything up. It'd be very easy with just a few small number tweaks to make Necros the scariest thing you've ever seen, or a Warrior the scariest thing you've ever seen. So we have to be really careful with those things.
I see.
I feel like
what about BM Rangers? BM Rangers OP.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so we're actually toning Rangers down a little bit. The DPS from the pet is actually going to be coming down. Because they are more sustainable now, they can actually stay in fights longer. The damage will be coming down, so that a lot of times, like right now, there's times where the Warrior, you're to be fighting a Ranger, and the Ranger just kind of goes AFK, and the pet just eats your face off, and you're like, well, what just happened? So we're trying to make sure that that's more balanced for everybody, and there's more play to dealing with the pet, trying to DPS it down, make him swap out. They have to actually start thinking about that kind of stuff. So we're going to be bringing down the damage a little bit on those pets, so because BMs are very strong.
You have any other secrets about what's coming up in terms of class balance, profession balance?
That's the big thing is you're going to see a lot more stone breaks for the Warrior, as I said. We are still playing around with the new condition. It's still going to be a dot. There have been a lot of actually great suggestions on the forum. Some of them were too complicated. They were more like a Guild Wars 1 hex. If you can imagine, that had all these like sub conditions and all these different things that it could do, and that was too much. But we have 3 or 4 candidates that we like right now. So as we get closer and closer to having that list narrowed down, we'll let you guys know. And some of the candidates too are just maybe things we'll do further down the road. So some of them we like a lot, so maybe we'll just do one now, and then one of the other candidates becomes a new condition down the road.
All right. So I feel like we've been neglecting Evan. He's just been sitting over there so nice, so quiet, just smiling.
Seriously. God, neglecting me.
We're sorry, Evan.
Do you have anything left for Evan to talk about, or should we just jump? I know these guys came with a lot of questions today. I know Zoose has like a novel. I don't think we'll have the time to answer all of them or look at all of them, but
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's cool.
No, those are the big things, I think. Yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
the code
spectator
stuff.
mode, customs, solo queue templates, ratings. Ratings was big.
Yeah, ratings is going to be big.
Yeah.
we'll have to spread it out next time, Evan. We'll have to like pepper in your conversation
Yeah.
throughout. All right. Well, like I said, I know Zoose had a lot of questions, and we'll I guess the important ones, Zoose. Just as we
gotta
kind
get
of.
that, sure.
What do you got, man?
The important questions for me? Oh, okay. I asked some of them before, but let's see. I like the new AoE ring fields. Like I can see little tiny mines and grenades and everything. That's pretty cool, and it shows up really red. So you guys already said that you're gonna be trying to make culling and stuff and the particle effects less. So that'd be really cool for a lot of people that do TPVP and even people that do World v World, because there's a lot of stuff that they can't see.
Well, is that going to be a game-wide culling, or is this going to be for tournament PvP?
Yeah.
We actually handle it differently in different places. So World v World has a different, it uses all the same backbone, if you can imagine, the same backbone of a system, but then it has different settings for the different game types.
Okay, I see. Let's see, what else was I going to say? I only have like 2 more suggestions, and one of them is for Warrior, and another one is maybe for secondary objective, so like you can make big plays and stuff.
Okay.
For Warrior, I feel that going back to like the conditions kind of thing where they can't self-sustain, like let's just take Ellie for example. Like what makes him good is like over time, a very short period of time, like 10 seconds, you can have consistent heals and consistent condition clear. So like instead of making mending 25 seconds, maybe you should just lower the cooldown and not necessarily touch the numbers. Like you can.
Sure.
That's just something that you guys will have to test and stuff.
Well, it's a great suggestion, though. I mean, there's other ways to do it, too, which maybe it removes more conditions. Maybe it, it doesn't,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? There's different ways you could do it. You could just up the heal by, you could make it 8 times as much. if you wanted
That would
to.
be
Like,
that would make Warriors OP. Then I would play Warrior. And like the other thing is like maybe for another map for a secondary objective. Shout outs to Cade because he helped me think of this last night.
okay.
What about having like this is kind of like a mixture of conquest and capture the flag at the same time. You have one big node in the middle, and then you have 2 flags on either side, and then to take points, like maybe you make the secondary, just as important as the middle node, where you capture the enemy's enemy flag, but you have to bring it back to your home node. So then you have more things like thieves and warriors and mobile classes that can be more useful in that instead of just heavy team fight comps.
Yep.
So I don't know.
No,
I think that's about it.
All right.
That's a great idea. I wrote it down. So
I got
Nice.
4 things.
4 things. All right.
Yeah, let me.
Oh man, Phantaram's going ham.
Okay,
Phantom
there's
always goes
2
ham.
things that are like dominating the meta right now, and that's stealth openers and the focus pull on mesmers. I think focus pull on mesmer, like it's just completely instant. You can't tell it's coming, and it pulls your whole team, and then you could just get caught in a shatter combo, and then everybody's doing stealth openers. You have the potential to just instantly kill somebody with like MOAs or any kind of opener, stuff like that, and also the MOA
Yeah, the
prevents
MOA.
sigils from working, and it might just it's really powerful right now.
Yeah, MOA in
Oh, yeah, that's
general.
right.
I mean, watching those EU tournaments, like or NA actually adopted all the MOA strat basically. So you go stealth opener, MOA guardian, kill guardian instantly, and then you profit.
Yeah.
Kill the chicken.
Is that
Because the sigil's bug.
are you looking at maybe adjusting the possibly the duration of MOA, or are you comfortable with where it's at right now, or?
It's really strong. It's supposed to be a shutdown. Like for instance, like if you're on a minion minion mancer necro, it actually rips all your minions too, which is one of those things like we're debating like is that what we really want there? Should the cooldown come up on this thing? Should it not last as long? So yeah, after watching the tournaments, we're definitely thinking about MOA, and maybe it's a little bit too good for what it was before, because we made it so that you can it's more easy to cast now, so it's getting a lot of play.
I think the focus number 4 on mesmer. When you put the wall down, it should have like a small cast time or something, so you can like say, oh, there's a wall, and you know he's gonna pull you, so you dodge or
So
something.
you can react, yeah.
Yeah, like it's just completely.
I can
instant.
agree with that. Because once they put it down, there's no reaction time. Like
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
can get
I
ready
think,
to
um,
but that's like about
It's like,
it.
well, you can get like 13 or 14 seconds of stealth right now. I think that gives the teams too many choices. You can like do whatever you want off of that much stealth. Like maybe if it was like 10 or 8 seconds, you just
Sure.
have to stick with a plan, and if you knew you were gonna do that, they could counter it. And then my last question is, are replays ever gonna, like, is that soon?
Replay system.
Can't talk about replays too much yet, but I can say that stuff like that could be in the future. I'll just say
it's definitely different tech than the spectator we have now.
Mhm.
There isn't a whole lot to say there, basically. But replays and observer mode, like you had in GW1, is definitely not the same as the spectator we have now. Not to say that the spectator we have now is wasted. I mean, it's definitely a feature we needed and that we were going to have anyways, but observer mode and replays is still something we want to do, of course, but for the time being, it's definitely lower on the priority list than everything else that we've been talking about, for sure.
And we could talk about the philosophy, though, real quick, though, about why we did what we did when we did it. That sounds correct. As we felt like we really wanted to encourage people like the Grouches of the world, the shoutcasters. We want you to be in the game with them. We want them to kind of be bringing you the action, communicating to you as a new player what's going on. We feel like replayers are really good for you guys, the top players, but for the casual player, it's much easier to just tune into a stream and have somebody explain to you why is this happening. If you're just watching a replay like in a void, it's much harder to get excited. It's much harder to understand what's going on. So that's why we decided to go with the system that we have now first. To be transparent about exactly why we did that.
All right. On that same note, I guess, what is your guys' main priority now? So, like you talked before about how it was so crucial to get customs and spectator in. Like that was huge. That obviously pushed us forward so far in terms of just getting this, the competitive side of this game rolling. So what are we looking at next? You mentioned solo queue is a huge priority for you guys.
Solo queue is huge for us. Yeah. Solo queue, all the changes to the matchmaking and the ratings, making sure that those are okay. Rewards, we want to look at the reward structure that we have and make sure we might even be revamping some of that stuff. We feel like rewards are really important, especially for the new players. And if you have the top tier players, they can't really exist without people who want to watch them and enjoy playing the game at a very low level. So we want to just make it fun for everybody who comes to the game to have a really cool, exciting game as soon as they get there. And rewards are a big part of that for new players. So we're looking at those things.
The other thing we're doing is that now that spectator mode and custom arenas are out and they've had such a big following, we're specifically setting time aside to make sure we have time available to respond to feedback. So we knew there was going to be probably a lot of polish we needed after people started shoutcasting, so we specifically set time aside so that we could get in and do things like the nameplate colors and health bars and cameras, and we didn't just immediately fill back up our time with the next big thing.
Yeah.
And so we'll probably be doing that for a little while.
All right. Anything else from Zoose Phantaram? If not, I'm gonna do a couple mentions of things that are coming up, and then I guess we'll wrap it up for the day here. Unless you guys have anything else you'd like to discuss.
I'm good.
Okay. Zeus Goose.
Goose.
Nope. Nothing else for me.
And real quick though, Grouch, like in players, if you guys want it, like we do watch the forums. I try to jump on there. I'll leave a meeting at 3:58. I'll come look at the forums for 2 minutes, and then I'll go to a 4 o'clock meeting. Like we try to jump in there as much as we can. Maybe we can't post all the time because we don't have the time to actually post, but we try to read as much as we can on the forum. So if you guys have other ideas, like Zeus had some great suggestions, Fant had some great suggestions. If you guys have more, put them on the forums. We really do read those things.
All right, sounds good. Well,
Best devs.
little bit of a self plug here. This Sunday, we do have the Masters of the Mist.
Sunday.
We do have the Masters of the Mist North America tournament that'll be hosted and casted by me and the one and only Tamaker. And I think that'll... Well, actually, no, we have Mist League. Oh, I almost forgot. Mist League's coming up, too. I think the official launch date is going to be the 15th. The 15th is when it's actually going to get rolling into gear or whatnot. So that'll be interesting. For those who are not familiar, check it out at mistleague.com. Some pretty cool ideas, pretty cool stuff that's coming out there. One other thing I wanted to mention too, GW League is kind of doing like a Cal type league we talked about before. They're actually they have player-made ratings for teams that participate in tournaments. They have it split up right now for NA, EU, and any tournaments that have international, like basically NA and EU teams. So if any of you guys have actually played in these tournaments, you can actually go check out the team ratings and see where people are, where they lie right now. It's kind of cool. It'll be really interesting to see where that goes once we get more tournaments going and more teams involved as well. Just a little plug there. But if that's all we have.
I'm looking forward to Sunday. I'm gonna be here at work. I'm just gonna watch from work. And,
Definitely gonna be watching.
Yeah, we'll be in there with you guys. So we're really looking forward to it. It's a pretty stacked ladder. I don't know who else. I know there was some drama about Gibby, I think, and Ostrich, if they could get in or not. Like, there's a little bit of drama.
There was a bit.
Who was getting in and who wasn't. So we're just excited to watch. So yeah, I'll be here on Sunday, my off day, watching as well because we're excited about it as well. So
yeah, we had some teams drop out. Teams come in. It's everything should be rock solid now though. So I'm really looking forward to it. I will be sitting right here for that tournament. It's weird yelling at my computer in my living room, doing it. It's a little awkward. It's hard to get hyped up when you don't have a crowd behind you, but whatever.
Do you want us to fly a crowd to your house? Will that help?
That would help out quite a bit. If you could just stand behind me by yourself, that'd be cool. It'd be a little weird, I guess.
With a headband on?
Just stand over me.
LBJ headband. There is one question that Helseth actually wanted me to ask. He says Phantasmal Berserker is bugged and it only hits one time instead of 4. Is there a fix for that?
Okay. I will find out when I get back to my desk. We'll see.
Okay.
I think it depends on like which way you're running. Like if you're running away from the Phantasmal Berserker, it hits you like a bunch. But if you're running at it, it like hits you like none or 1 or something like that.
Okay.
All right, guys. Well, thanks again, John, Evan. Thanks for coming on, guys. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
And obviously we had Zeus and Fanta. Thanks, guys. Thanks for coming on.
It's always fun.
I have to give shout-outs, though. I promised.
Oh,
that
let's hear it.
To the Warriors, to Defective and H-Man, and of course Gas Mask for introducing me to basically everybody.
Good guy, Gas Mask. All right, guys. Well, thanks again.
Cool.
We're going to go ahead and wrap it up.
Okay.
Thanks for watching. Oh, make sure to follow these guys' Twitters and whatnot. Mine and Zeus's. And then you have Phantaram's stream right there as well. You're going to start streaming more, Phanta?
I will when they fix my internet. Like my internet was down like all last night.
Yes. Also, make sure to follow this channel. This is where we'll be hosting most of the Guru-related tournaments. And you can follow us on Twitter, blah, blah, blah. Follow the channel, whatnot. Thanks for watching, guys.